Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Melody McAllister. I am coming live to you from Anchorage, Alaska. I have two amazing educator author speakers with me, Holly Clark and Alice Keeler. Before we get into talking with them, the reason I'm doing this, and I'm going to be doing it as much as I can, I have a huge network of families, of educational leaders, and community builders in my life. And I strongly believe that when we all come together, when we talk about like, we're in this together and we're going to get through this together. That's what I want people to be able to hear, listen, and truthfully put into practice in real life. And so I am so honored today to have both of you here with me because you are both your leaders in the classroom, your leaders in our country with education and technology. And so I'd like to introduce you to Holly Clark first. We all talked on Friday and I got really excited because you were talking about how your book, the Google or the Chromebook infused classroom, was good for parents too. And I just jumped on that immediately. And I just want to say congratulations because both of your books are like in the top ranks right now. So congratulations to you. And tell us a little bit about your background, Holly, and just why you care so much about parents.
Well, I care about parents, number one, because they are a key component in a student's success. And they have to be aware of what school should look like. And it's been many years since they were in school, so they're still thinking of school in the old-fashioned way. And I really want to help parents understand what school should look like, because it's really hard to know when you haven't been in school in a while. And a lot of parents get out and they're like, I did 12 years. I know about school, but school has changed. And so the other day we were talking about how my Chromebook infused classroom is really about student-centered learning. And most parents have never experienced student-centered learning because that's okay, because because back in our day, the teacher had the content, they had to get it to us, we had to pretty much regurgitate it, and that's what school looked like. And school looks differently now, and I really want to help parents see what it should look like.
Yeah, and I love that you said that because you had an amazing TED Talk, and I actually put it in the comments so that people can listen to it. It's great. Talk about disrupting education. And honestly, like this has been a long time coming. And even though your TED Talk was 2016, everything that I was listening to still pertains, especially to now, because still a lot of us are not getting up with what we still need for education to be, how to serve everybody. So I love that. And I hope that anybody watching and listening will look for that TED Talk that you gave. So tell us a little bit about your book and anything that any more of your thoughts that you have that will help parents and teachers partner together.
So let's go back to the TED Talk, because one of the things that I say in the TED Talk is that teachers that we knew taught the same content the same way at the same time. And we now have access to information never before seen in human history. And so so what we need to learn is pretty much the same, but how we learn it needs to look differently. And so when I talk about that, I mean that students should be in charge of their learning. They should be able to track and manage their learning. It means that their teachers should be activating their curiosity. They should be asking them in assessments rather than always multiple choice. They should be asking them to really explain their learning journey and tell about what they learned. It's something in my book that I call press record. And that means that like I want them to use something like Flipgrid, which wasn't around when we were kids, or Seesaw, which wasn't around when we were kids, to really explain what they learned, how they learned it, what they're most proud of, what they wish they had some feedback with. And in my day, when I was a kid, if I wanted to get that kind of information to the teacher, I had to sit at her desk and we had to have a one-to-one conversation, and teachers didn't have time to do that. But now we have video recording apps. And sometimes parents are afraid of their kid being on this video recording app when it's like the best thing ever, because no one's going to see it. They're not going to be on YouTube. No one's taking it. They're all behind really safe walls with Microsoft in this particular Flipgrid one. And it's a time for a student to articulate what they learned. And so if we think about school as getting kids ready for a job, whether it's going to be as an entrepreneur who has to sell a venture capitalist on what they're doing, or a kid who's going to sit across from the desk or across from a video call from someone, they have to be able to articulate their thoughts. And no matter if they're shy or their English is a second language. And so we have these apps now in school that allow kids to articulate their thinking. And many teachers are not taking advantage of this. But the number one reason we have school is so that kids will have a job. And so we need to let them articulate. And one of the things that I feel really passionate about is that in life, we spend about 80% of our time talking and probably about 20% of our time in email and text and whatever. So that's 80-20. It's kind of the 80-20 rule. When we go to school, we reverse it. We want everything in text. If you're going to give me an answer, I want you to write it on a piece of paper. And no one is going to come up to you at a job interview and say, I have some job questions for you. They might have you write some of them out, but they're going to hire you based on how quickly you respond, how well you use your words. And so when as parents, when we see a teacher who's doing multiple choice questions exclusively for assessment, someone has on there on Facebook, we need to
It's Alice.
Alice turned on your thing. It's okay. We need to ask them if we need to, and this is where it's hard because we're not educators. I don't want you to go into a teacher who's been doing this for 20 years and say, you're doing assessments wrong. Maybe you buy my book, a Chromebook Infused Classroom, and hand it to them and go, there's some really good ideas in here. Or you get a Alice Keeler book and you have read it, so you know that there are richer ways of doing assessments. And so in my teaching career, and I've been teaching in the education field for over 25 years, I can't remember the last time I used a worksheet. I just can't. Mm-hmm. Because my craft, I've worked on my craft. I've gone away to get my master's, and I've been studying. And I don't have any need for that because I want kids creating. I want them applying their knowledge. I want them struggling and having cognitive struggle around what they're working on, not going home and filling in blanks. And if somebody sends home for you a word finder or word search, you might need to switch classes. No, but that's not right. Because sometimes we have to get some stuff in there for plans or whatever. But
things. The problem is whether or not we're grading it.
Yes, right. Exactly. And Alice said it exactly right. The problem is we're grading them. Sometimes you got to have fun. Exactly. So Alice, that brings up a good place for you to come into this conversation.
Well, I'm a mom of 5 and I am a teacher, and I know we can't transform our curriculum overnight, but I love your thoughts on saying, here's some key things to look for. And not every teacher has your book. And, I feel like we've all been thrown off the edge of a cliff with our hair set on fire. And I have a lot of empathy. I can't redo my curriculum overnight, and we all need some support and help. And so looking at your book from a parent point of view and being like, these are some good activities, and I can partner with the teacher on some suggestions and some resources, and just be more equipped to be an ally.
That's
right.
A really good point.
And I do have Alice's book here. I don't have Holly's yet, but it's brand new. So just give me some. I will have it soon. But I think one of the reasons why I wanted both of you on here today is because these are books about Google Classroom. These are books about technology that's people's students or children are using. And so one of the biggest things that when I've asked parents, what's stopping you from really understanding this process of remote learning? And it's always about language. And so one of the benefits, because we have to partner with parents right now, in the past, before the pandemic, we got by without always having a true partnership with parents. But right now we can't. We parents and teachers and community have to work together. And so we have to break down that language. And I want to ask both of you, what are some of the words that parents should know so that they can understand? Because they're like, I don't understand Google Classroom. Can you shed some light on that?
I mean, I don't know about the words, but some of the things that are maybe tricky to understand is there's not a parent portal, and how do you know what your child's supposed to be doing? And I actually appreciate that there's not a parent portal, because usually what happens is we're all busy. And as a parent, I'm like, I just want to know what my kid's supposed to be doing with their homework. And that to me is a shift I'm trying to get away from, is what's their homework as to what's their learning. And so,
I like that.
Get onto the parent portal. Who's the audience of Google Classroom or Seesaw or any of these? And the answer is the student. They're not written for the parent. They don't have a parent direction. So that's one of the things that I include in my book, Google Apps for Littles, is when you do write the directions for the student, which we always write them for the student. That's normal. But what if you just wrote 1 to 3 sentences of what does the parent need? You write it to the parent. You can use bigger words or other explanations, your audience being the parent, so that when they do look at it, they don't have to email you. So the problem with the parent portal is parents get in, they're seeing these things that are designed for students, and I don't understand this because it wasn't written for them, and it's not supposed to be. They're not the audience. So my recommendation is always, as a parent, sit with your kid. Don't look at your kid's stuff by yourself. In my opinion, that's a mistake, because your kid knows what's going on. The directions were made for them. They know the classroom expectations and the things that the teacher wants. And a lot of times it can just be cleared up with you guys sitting together, let's look at this. Why is this missing? I've sometimes gotten an email from a parent as a teacher, where it's how come you don't have a grade in for my kid on this assignment? And I'm like, well, it's second period and they're in 7th period. So I haven't seen them yet today. So, by the end of the day, I will hopefully get that in, or maybe tomorrow. I think that happened once.
I have. Because they see it come up and where's my kids?
It's understandable, but that's my point. They're not in 7th period and they're not in 2nd period. They're jumping in when they can have a chance, and they're not really knowing what's going on because it wasn't designed for them. It's not in an audience. So I would recommend as teachers, is remembering that whatever you're creating, it is focused on the student, and how can you create some elements that specifically give hey, we don't do math the same way. There's photo math. It can do the math problems for them. So we don't ask them to just give us the answer, because technology has replaced that. So instead we want them to look at it from a more number sense point of view. So we have them do the same problem multiple times. So I know that I sometimes have parents get upset because they got the right answer, why can't, but that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for that number sense approach.
So one thing I'm hearing both of you say, and I love this, is that schoolwork looks differently. A lot of times we call it new math, but it's not really new math. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's been there all this time. And so we as parents a lot of times feel comfortable when we get worksheets, because that's how we were taught. We had a lot of paperwork. We had a paper trail. What you want parents to know is that more educators that are really into their pedagogy and really doing best practices are really focusing on the process now. And so it definitely looks different for parents today working with their students, because we are trying to get that process of learning how to keep moving forward even through failure, because we're going through a complete change. And I love that both of you are into that, because it is a disruption into the status quo education that we have had for many years. I guess we have to come together and say, worksheets aren't the only way that students are learning. However, there is that equity issue too when we don't have, internet across. There are going to be schools that are going to be focusing on paperwork. They're going to have that. So we can't dismiss that altogether. But I do also like what you said.
We are assuming in that the only way that we could deliver school without a Chromebook is with a worksheet, which doesn't replace instruction. So I would like to dismiss that as saying that is the alternative. That's not the alternative. They can do projects, they can do project-based learning, and they can do inquiry things, and we can give them a book. It doesn't necessarily have to be worksheets. But I'd also like to say you're not going to be able to recreate your entire curriculum overnight. So we need to have some grace.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think we need to step back too. And as a parent, if you are in a school district and they don't have Chromebooks, and Chromebooks are a reasonably priced thing, you need to get involved and make sure that your kid gets some technology, because when they get to the work world, they're going to need it. And if your school district is still not providing that, that's where you need to step in.
I don't know where any other university that doesn't have the students enroll in their classes online and at least access like the syllabus and certain things, even if the class is not on class, the online class. But hey, guess what's happening this fall?
Mm-hmm. Well, and as far as we see, a lot of places are starting remotely, but I have also seen that in different parts of the country, still they're planning on face-to-face. But regardless of how they're starting, Chromebooks or iPads, but especially Chromebooks are huge. And I do like that, like you can, as a parent, get it. And there's a lot of parents who are choosing this year to homeschool who had never thought about that before. Like they're doing it because what are your thoughts on that, Holly?
I think there's a problem with equity on that. I like homeschooling is one thing, and I don't have my nieces and nephews were homeschooled, but there's a lot of parents doing pods, and pods are, I pay $150 for my student to go work with a teacher with like 5 other kids, and what that is it's rich kids getting to take their education to another level. And so I wish that if a person were doing a pod and they had money, they said, I'll do a pod, but I'm going to also pay for someone who can afford it or find something. But another thing, while teachers learn how to progress into this remote learning situation, we do have to have grace. But one of the partnerships I'm trying to get teachers to hear, and I don't have access to every teacher, but one of the things that Alice talked about was directions. And just in the same way I said we can press record with students and hear about stuff, I want teachers to start doing a press record for directions, showing what they're looking for, showing the thing and having it on Flipgrid so that the kid can watch it again because they're going to forget what the teacher said. And more importantly, the parent can watch it and understand kind of where, like the background knowledge, and not just get the 3 sentences that confuse them. And so because we're in this new age, I think teachers are going to have to step up and begin to learn to do these video instructions. They can also be translated into the native language of the parent. And we can really help bridge the equity divide when we do little things like this and learn how to do that in Flipgrid. And so I hope that teachers will do that because we need parents. You cannot have success without
them. Yes. It should almost be a non-negotiable for every teacher. It is such a powerful tool for learning, and it's 100% free. It is video like how kids do video, not how old people like myself do video. And so, especially since it's free, it works on every device.
I mean, and a phone. So if you don't have access to technology, the kid can still grab the phone and record themselves and their thinking, and the teacher can record themselves and you can watch it on a phone.
Yeah. I like
think Flipgrid should be like the #1 tool both parents and teachers learn about.
I love that you said that because like all 3 of us are into educational technology or ed tech, and a lot of the teachers that are watching are too. And I just wonder, like, do parents understand what Flipgrid is? Excuse me, because it is super powerful. And so what I wanted to even talk about and introduce today is that, are we as educators introducing this as vocabulary? Are we going back and forth? Because what you just said is so powerful. It is a powerful tool. And is it the everyday language that our parents are also understanding and implementing? So I love that you said that. I totally, so I put it out there, Flipgrid.
Now that I understand your vocabulary word, because I was a little stymied at first, you can't give a huge vocabulary list. I mean, let's not forget that parents have a job, whether that job be outside of the home or it's taking care of the home. Those are jobs. I'll tell you what, my husband's a stay-at-home dad, and I know he works harder than me. And it's hard. And so, and like, how much can you even absorb as a parent to do those things in addition to all the other responsibilities that you have? So I recommend keeping that list pretty low. You know, if you're using a classroom or using Seesaw, there's your first vocabulary word. Flipgrid's your second vocabulary word. If you get 1 handful, what are they? Because it becomes too much. I mean, I know a lot of parents, they're willing to look some things up and they'll ask questions and they want to learn, but there's only so much capacity. So one of them is whatever your platform is.
Yeah.
Then it's Flipgrid. And then the Chromebook Infused Classroom's got a lot of others. Did you say, Holly, you have like 20, how many do you have in there?
20. And I call them the learning superpowers.
I do 20 tools. There's your choice for it.
And so that's why I really want my hands on your book, Holly, is because all of those applications that we take for granted that we're all very well acquainted with, parents outside of educational technology have no idea. And so that's why it's such a great resource. It was written for teachers, but at this point, it could also be very helpful for parents. And Alice, I love what you said. Yes, we could like we even get confused with our jargon inside of our profession. So there is a limited capacity.
Can I add
So
one?
Go ahead.
You talked about homeschooling, and my niece is contacted me and said, I want to do homeschooling, and what do you think? And I said, well, it really depends on what you're doing, because if it's sitting in front of a computer answering questions and progressing through a thing, which is often the situation with online schools, and not all online schools, I don't know the one that you might be using, but I've seen some that are like, I'm going to do this chapter and I'm going to answer the questions, and I'm going to go to the next one and the next one. If that's it, you're not preparing your kids for 2030. And in 2030, when they graduate, there's going to be artificial intelligence, and there's going to be things that are answering questions that they're being asked to answer in often these online environments. And so we need to create kids as teachers that are empathetic, that can create, that can look at the data in an empathetic mindset. And so if you are in a homeschool that is project-based and working with other parents and whatever, yes, that's probably a good idea. But if it is something that kids are sitting at a computer and doing lessons and watching a video of someone doing a lesson, aka Khan Academy all day, no. Khan Academy is good for when you need help and you didn't know how to do that question, but to progress in that way would be a devastation to that student's ability to critically.
I'm glad we feel the same on that, Holly.
I do too. Yes.
Just be really leery of that as you make that decision.
Right. And I love that, because and as an educator who has done both public and homeschooling, it's just like teaching in so many ways. I mean, I'm not any better as a home educator just because I was a great educator in the public classroom. You know, I was a much better teacher, honestly, like hands down. My personal children think I am a terrible teacher. So, but here's the thing, just like what we're preaching to our students and our parents, we want them to understand it's a process. Like this year is like, if you're taking on the challenge of home education, it is a process. And you, as a student of this, you're going to be failing a lot, and helping your kids understand that can be something, the back and forth you have with your kids. This didn't work. How can we, what is the word? I iterate. Did I say that right? Iterate. How can we change this? It has to be a part of our entire world. How can we make this better? And I love that both of you said that, because sitting in front of a computer is not good for anybody, and especially our young students.
It's worse than smoking. So we need to think about how breaking it up and getting them to move. I would just like to say, in terms of the book, the Chromebook Infused Classroom, as being something that's good for parents to purchase. You just said we need to iterate and figure out if something's not working, let's do something else. And I think some of us found that it wasn't working for our kid for whatever reason. And you don't know what to do. And sometimes the school doesn't know what to do, because who's supposed to know what to do at the last second where everything changes? And so the Chromebook Infused Classroom gives parents something to say, like, let's try this.
It's true.
We really want parents to be able to partner with teachers in some way. They have to know the jargon and what's going on at schools to even know what to advocate for. A lot of times I would get phone calls from parents, and they are mad like they stepped in the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And it took me a lot of years to realize whatever they're screaming at me about is not really what they're upset about. They are frustrated because it's not working for their kid. And there was something that they felt like, okay, I can call about this and at least be, try and say, like, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. But really, that particular thing is rarely what the instance was. Their kid's struggling. And it took me a long time to figure out, when I have a parent who's upset with me, I need to just be quiet and listen. And then I say, what I hear you saying is this isn't working for your kid. Let's try something different. Because I think a lot of times, for a lot of years, I'm like, well, they're not doing their homework, or they should come to after school lab, as if this magic one size fits all is going to work for every kid. And it never did. It never did. And I finally just had like this epiphany, like, okay, they're trying to communicate with me. They're trying to partner with me, and they're mad, but it's just because they don't know the jargon of teaching.
Well, and that actually is.
This would be really helpful, is to say, I saw this in the Chromebook infused classroom. Can we try this? And now we think ally.
Because in it, I start with getting to know things like DOK. What is DOK? And while you don't need to call your teacher and be like, that was DOK level 2, knowing that it was DOK level 2 or 1, like what a great parent would you be to be, and then I talk about the 4 C's, which everyone's talking about in education. So if you go to a parent teacher conference and the person said, well, we were doing the 4 C's, you can be like, I know what that is. That's good.
That's exactly it. Getting the jargon. Get the jargon down, you know how better to communicate what is and isn't working. And DOK is I love DOK. Me and Shelly Burgess, we like to hang out, and that's like our debate. Like, what DOK is this? So, I mean, I think I would just fall over and die if a parent brought that up to me, because
I know.
It's not.
You tell me that was DOK.
It's not. It'd be great. That would be the best. I would love to have a DOK conversation with a parent.
Oh my gosh.
I kind of hate that word. I'm not going to lie. I'm like so sick of it. Although the only reason I know it is because of Alice. And I hear it everywhere. But I like that you said that, because it really is a real thing, and it's a good thing. Depth of knowledge is a good thing, because we are trying to get deeper into learning with our students.
Because we have access to information never before seen in human history. So now we have to get at the deep thinking and the deep learning.
Right. And that's really the problem with the packets, is a lot of them are asking. My son's science fair project was, how much of my homework can be done by asking Alexa? Which now Alexa just turned on.
Which would be a DOK 1.
Which would make it DOK 1. So it's low critical thinking. For those of you who don't know, DOK is a 4-point measure of critical thinking. And so if you're asking for recall, something that could be Googled, we're concerned that kids would cheat and they would copy off of someone else, it is probably DOK 1. So as we move into remote learning, we really have to take that focus off of DOK 1, because you cannot control them from Googling it, which, by the way, I Google stuff every day. That's a life skill. Yeah. So it just really necessitates, remote learning is not the same as face-to-face. And so really understanding that we have to change up the questions in order just to make remote learning even remotely meaningful, because otherwise I would Google it. I'm going to be honest. If it was me, if I can Google it, I will.
So what we're saying is, I think in remote learning, it can no longer be this DOK level 1 to get parents into the jargon, and it needs to be a higher DOK. So that means they're going to be doing projects. And again, I'm going to come back to, if they're going to be doing projects, that's really hard instructions to understand for a parent. So if the teacher would go to Flipgrid and leave the instructions that way with mentor text up on the screen that they could see, we would all have a better remote learning experience. So any
Say it again.
They're listening.
Say that again, Holly.
Teachers
strategy.
Well, I wrote a blog post about it, and teachers need to take this seriously as we move forward. They have to leave these instructions that can be translated, that can be watched again, and we will not have success in remote learning. I mean, we can have some, but we won't be at our highest DOK level of it.
How much time do I waste in my face-to-face class repeating myself?
Right. Or the kid who comes in absent in face-to-face.
Short videos.
Yeah.
But, it's like, you cannot replicate the school day. To think that a kid could sit for 7 hours in front of a computer screen or at a packet or whatever, sitting is worse than smoking. Really, they should only be sitting and doing this for a few hours a day. And as any homeschool parent knows, you can actually get all your schooling done in 4 hours total. And one of the things. You have little, so for high school, 4 hours.
We take between 2 and 3, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, my friend's daughter is 12, and the other day, her teacher gave her a Teachers Pay Teacher packet that also had the answers. So she's bought the packet, I got the answers. Just saying.
We know.
Okay. Wait. I have a question, and I didn't prep you for this, but listen. So I asked some parents in my life that I think are amazing people, what were the biggest obstacles that you thought from the crisis teaching that happened from last school year? And one of the parents said, my friend Daniel, in case he's watching, he said, like, the content, he doesn't think the content is bad. It's just so different. And like we said earlier, it's been such a long time since he's been in school. Is there a way, because there's that fight when the kids say, but this is how my teacher does it. And then this is how we learned. So there's that versus, that teacher versus parent. Is there a way that as educators, we could help our parents to have that content available so that they can also share that with their kids in a way that is empowering?
Video tutorials, video explanations, video, so that everyone is on the same page. It's good teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Parents have to be taught right now too. And I would have no problem with that. It's going to take you a little extra time, but the reward.
I'm going to gently push back. I'm a parent. I'm not watching your videos. I'm just saying. You can make all
I know a lot of parents who would.
I do too.
I'm not. So I'm going to speak up for those parents who cannot. And
it's on them. It's on them if the kid's not succeeding. If I provided those kinds of helps, and then I'm not leaving an hour video.
I make dinner. Where's this time that I'm suddenly supposed
Put it
to?
on while you're making dinner. I'm not gonna accept those excuses because I'm not making an hour video. I'm making a 3-minute video.
Right. I love that you said that, Holly. It has to be short because, like you said, Alice, there's so many parents that even though they choose to homeschool or they're doing the remote learning, they've chosen that, they're working full time still. It does have to be short, but and not every parent is going to need it or want it. But for the parents that want it, it should be available. You know, it's how we reach. Everybody learns differently. Every parent is probably going to be approaching this differently, but the more resources that we give them, the more empowered they feel to help their kids and so to be successful. So I like it. I'd watch it.
I also truly believe that if it came to your youngest and he was struggling, you would watch. You're older, you would be like, figure it out.
Improve it because we didn't do it this last time. My almost 8-year-old can't read. And it's like, I'm not a reading specialist. I don't know how to support him in reading. And I'm not going to suddenly, that's why I send him to public school. I trust and I love the teachers that he has. I'm not a teacher.
Right. I mean, and that's something that is like, we should talk more on that. And we're actually going to talk more on that because I have a whole list of, people with expertise as educational thought leaders, as community builders that are coming in, and we're going to be tackling all of this. So I'll make sure that those concerns that you just said are shared by a lot of people. And we need to be able to address that too, especially since we're coming out of crisis teaching and we need something that works for our students, especially those who need extra support. So I'm glad you said something.
And that would be great for parents to have a reading specialist come on who can say,
oh my gosh, yes.
Reading specialist would be great. I mean, for me, it's a concern with our little ones and well, not even just little ones, just as you said, some specialists. What do we do? We can't just, there has to be an equity issue. I mean, this is a different conversation than Holly's book, but I'm really concerned of setting up school structures that rely on unequitable situations, and it's important to me. So
I'm really
that is pods. Yeah, I am too. It's my heart to advocate for parents and students and educators all together to come together for this. And I mean, it's so important to talk about. So I'm glad that you said it because it will be a part of this summer series that I'm doing. Ladies, thank you so very much for joining me tonight. I put the link for Holly's newest book on the bottom, but also here's Alice's book, Stepping Up to Google Classroom. And so educators, I hope that you get armed with these great resources, but parents that are watching also, these are good for you. It'll take down the wall of the language barrier. You don't have to memorize every single word. You might not know what DOK means right now, or maybe you do, but it's in these books. So it's a good resource to have. But thank you, ladies, so much. We're going to leave. If you have any last thoughts to share, I want to give it to you. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Whether it's live or afterwards, put your questions and comments, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.